Welcome back, everybody. 8:01 a.m. Friday, November 3rd, 2017. That is Eastern Time. All right, with the calm going on in the Atlantic and our part of the Pacific Ocean, I feel like it's important to talk about this new named typhoon. This is Typhoon DAMREY. I'm very aware that a lot of channels have been covering this. I haven't had the time to do so, unfortunately, but there is a lot of other great information on YouTube that you guys can check out. A lot of you point that out in the comments, which is great. As long as this info is getting out one way or another, that is the entire point of this. Now, with this typhoon here, it is barreling right towards Vietnam, and more specifically, I'm not going to try to even name some of these places to avoid butchering the names, but we could just get an idea here. If we move this timeline here, if I skip a whole day, this thing is already gone. That's how quickly it's moving. So right now this is 8 a.m. This would be 11 a.m. This is Eastern Time, by the way, so the timing here would be different. I'm going by Eastern Time. Now this is 2 p.m. where we're going to start getting some crazy winds along the coast here of Vietnam. 72 miles an hour. Now look, I'm aware that we are at 500 meters here, but I want to point something out to you guys, and that is this. Let's just move this back to about current time. Now take a look at these wind speeds when I move my mouse. We're seeing near the eye wall 91, 105, 109, and then it starts going back down. So we're peaking, at least at this height, 500 meters, at about 109 is one of the higher readings I can see. Maybe we'd see a 110, a 112, something like that. But what I want you to check out is this. If I can find it. Here we go. So these are the current registered speeds for this typhoon, Typhoon DAMREY. And sustained winds right now are at 80 miles an hour. So that's 10 minutes. They base these winds off a 10-minute period. So for 10 minutes straight, they're getting a sustained wind of 80 miles an hour. So that's how you get your sustained winds. Sometimes they go by 1-minute intervals. As you can see here, the 1-minute intervals are 85, and then there's gusts of 115. So when you come back over to Ventoux Sky and you start measuring these wind speeds, you can see that the winds that they are measuring on the Wikipedia article are actually sort of matching what you would see at 500 meters. Now, if I drop this down to 10 meters, which is where more humans live, basically we are, unless you live in the mountains, these are the wind speeds that would affect us. Moving out from the eye of this storm is about 20-mile-an-hour winds. And then as you move out, we hit the 50s, 60, and we get to about 74. And then sometimes when you wrap around, you get those other winds. So this is why I point out that this is the accurate altitude, is what I'm trying to say, to use for when you're looking at how these winds are going to affect us. Now, yes, I know a lot of people will take this and they will throw it up to the 1500 mark and be like, oh my god, there's going to be 120-mile-an-hour winds, this and that. But that's not necessarily true. These are high altitude winds, and it also makes these things look a lot more dramatic. Now, I'm not trying to take away from the fact that this is a typhoon. This is a fast-growing typhoon, and it's going to slam right into this area of Vietnam. And not only that, but it looks like, I don't think this is the actual case, but it looks like it hits land, and then over the next couple days, it reforms on this side into another typhoon, which I will show you guys in a minute. But the one thing I wanted to point out in this video were these settings for Ventoux Sky. Now, if you see someone using these wind speeds when they are set at 1500 meters, these are not wind speeds that you're going to feel on the ground, on ground levels. These are high up in the air. 1500 meters is well over 3,000, 4,000 feet in the air. So unless you're in the mountains, that's when you would have to worry about winds this high. So this thing being changed to 10 meters, that's where you want it set if you really want to know what the winds are going to be like when you hit the coast. And as you can see, this matches. We get some readings of 72, almost about 80, and then when you go to the Wikipedia article, you can see right here the sustained winds are at 80. So I just wanted to verify that for some of you guys. let people know that if they're using the higher altitudes to try to determine wind speeds, it's a little bit of an exaggeration because that's not how it works. This is at 10 meters off the ground, which is about, what, 30 feet? So even that is a little high for people that live at sea level. But then again, we are dealing with a typhoon. The whole point of this is to tell you about where it's going to go. And as of right now, by about 5 p.m. Eastern Time, is when this thing is going to make landfall between these two areas. Again, I'm not going to even try to pronounce them. Maybe if I had more time to prepare, I would say some of these names for you, but we're calling this Vietnam for right now. So we're at 2 p.m. Here is 5 p.m., and that's when we're going to start seeing the effects of this in these areas of Vietnam. So, well, I'm going to keep an eye on this throughout the day. I do have to go to work once again, but it's the weekend. We got a couple days off. And yeah, there's a lot of strip islands here and pieces of land that stick out into the ocean that are very much going to be affected by this. So we're talking landfall, even at the 10-meter mark, 90 miles an hour easily being pulled in from the ocean into the face of this landmass here, and then we will more than likely see water being pulled out of this bay. We're going to get some of those dry beaches, and as the water is pulled out, it gets wrapped around and then pushed into these areas. So there's going to be some very significant coastal flooding all along these areas, and then there's going to be some water receding in these areas. So that's why you see some of these dry beaches and stuff before big storms hit. Now the water does return eventually, but it's just during this storm is when these things are going to happen. So some of the worst area is going to be right by this area here, TUY space HOA, if that's an O. I don't even think that's an O. So by 5 p.m. we have landfall. And then you can see by 8 p.m. this thing is already well inland. And then just check this out before I let you guys go. I gotta zoom out a little bit here. Okay, maybe a little too much. Going once. Okay, so now we are at Friday the 3rd. Here's Saturday the 4th. Now just try to imagine this thing moving across land here. So by the 4th, maybe, you know, the center would have been right around here. Here's the 5th. Here is the 6th, 7th, and here's the 8th. And you start seeing this form right here. Here is the 9th. We start getting a little bit of that cyclone formation. The 10th, and then by the 11th, we're dealing with yet another typhoon, which is heading right towards I'm not even saying it. Sorry, not happening. So I'm not sure if this is the exact same system that is entering Vietnam, crossing land, and then reforming on this side, but it sure does look like it, which is pretty interesting. So here is Typhoon DAMREY right here. And then as we move forward, just try to picture it moving across the land there. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, it really does look like it's reforming. And then the 10th right there. So it looks like it's hitting Vietnam, coming across this way, and then reforming as yet another typhoon. So if it loses its tropical, or not tropical, if it loses its qualities and a certain amount of wind speed, it will be a finished storm, which means it'll have an end date, and then if it reforms after that, chances are it will get another name. So if it stays, if it keeps a certain amount of wind speed and cyclone formation throughout the land movement, it'll stay the same name, but if it loses that and drops below a certain number, it will be renamed as another storm. So that is pretty interesting, I think. So here is the Wikipedia article I am using currently for this. Once again, we have 115 mile an hour gusts, 85 or 80 to 85 mile an hour sustained winds, and this thing is barreling right towards Vietnam. So we're going to keep an eye on it. They just finished with Typhoon Sayola, which was actually downgraded, which is a good thing. And then before that, we had that major typhoon land. So the Western Pacific is very active still. We're going to keep an eye on that. And then I also have some information I'm going to bring to you guys soon about the California fires. I've been getting some interesting emails from people that this isn't verified info, so that's why I'm holding off on making the video, but there's some people claiming that there were groups of officials, whether they were government officials or whatever it may be, were actually walking around certain towns asking people what they saw in the sky that night before the fires started. So that, in my mind, leads more information to that possible meteor shower we were talking about. Alright, so anyway, before I trail off on that, guys, this video is for this Typhoon DAMREY, and I will be back this afternoon. I hope everyone has a good Friday. It'll be a good weekend. I could finally get some work done and put some more videos out, guys. I'm sorry I haven't been producing as much. Just been very busy, but here we are. Vietnam is the next target for Typhoon DAMREY. Alright, guys, talk to you soon. Bye-bye.